Well, welcome back to part 37 of Death End Request 2, where last time we finished the game, so we got a bunch of mini-games to show off. Firstly, starting with the AO only mini-game. The way the AO only mini-game works is that you're trying to get through this area without touching any of the AO onlys. And I have no idea if that's what you actually call them, it's just how it's spelt and I had to make it. It's either AO only or AO only, so for the sake of this, I'll be calling them the AO only. But after this, we'll be starting the pain area. I get the whole first floor of it done on this visit. And then it starts to fall into a familiar procedure to those of you who watched the Let's Play of the first Death End game. The bad ending and extra scenes I'll be showing later on, because I'm still recording the pain area as we speak. The pain area in this game, as I've alluded to before, is a lot longer in this one than it is in previous ones. So you gotta just put up with it for now until I can get it all recorded and edited down. It might be a stagnated release, but we'll get there. I don't get this first attempt. Despite knowing exactly where I need to go, I get unlucky a lot. Things just don't work out. Look at that little guy. The sizes of how big the AO only are when they come out seems to be completely random. I say seems to be because I don't know that for a fact. But the size of them does affect their speed, and the further along the path you go, the faster they'll be anyway. So if a small one spawns in front of you and you're right near the end, it might just get you. You can see there's a few points where they just straight up catch up to me, even when I'm running full spin, like full tilt. But I do eventually get the right path through. But this was a strange minigame because they advertised this minigame separately from the rest of the adventure before it came out originally in Japan. And they were showing it off as like this cool fancy minigame that they put some extra effort into. And I knew it was like, it's to do with some kind of like licensing deal in Japan. But I'm not actually sure what the full thing is, but these guys are from something else basically. And they were doing a trailer specifically for it. But you can't access this minigame till you beat the game. So I can imagine there's a handful of people that never experienced this. But there is an end to it, something that I mistakenly thought there wasn't when I first played it, and there's still the video of me assuming that online if you want to watch that, of me just running around and my first impressions. It is a fun minigame. It can be a little spooky if you're not prepared for it, but it's not that bad. It's just learning it. The horror factor of it that starts off wears off quite quickly when you start having these multiple attempts, especially because one good clear attempt is always going to take you around a minute. But your reward for doing so is the AO only earrings, which aren't brilliant. They just boost your SP, but literally nothing else, so they're not worth it in my opinion. Additionally, we got a new weapon for Maya. You get it for getting the good ending, the heretic hatchet. I won't be using it because going into the pain area, knowing the videos are going to start taking a lot longer, I cave in and start using DLC tools, not only to just show them off, but to actually get a move on as well with it. Additionally, despite my heavy recommendations, I failed to start the pain area with Liliana's invincibility skill. I get it during the run, so don't worry about it. We do pick it up eventually, just not yet. There's a point later on, and the reason why I missed it is because it requires you to use Alice Revive, and there's yet to really be a point where Liliana is the one alive and someone else is dead. But the pain area is exactly how you remember it from the first game. This big green field, it's even the same like environmental music. And you just go fight to fight to fight to fight all the way through 5 floors of conflicts. There are some changes though between this one and the last one. Firstly is that there are gimmicks that'll pop up here, there and everywhere. They don't pop up often, they're more there just to kind of spice it up a little. Like every now and then there'll be a computer for a code on the door. There might be a treasure chest that has a memo on it for a code for a door. There might be a random curse ball you'll pick up. There might be a random platformer that you'll have to use Rosso to float up to. It's why it doesn't actually let you in until you've got the main 3. And what that means for you guys is that when I was recording this, I just skipped all cutscenes and raced to the very second that Liliana joins your party in the later half of Chapter 3. Which might be like, oh god, 3 chapters. When you're skipping cutscenes and you're in New Game Plus and you're avoiding every encounter except the boss fights that you have to do, I got there in like 30 minutes. It did not take long at all. And these earlier fights, you're going to see me using items or healing quite often, but the moment we cross the level 99 threshold, which will happen, it will happen eventually, we won't need to worry about it because just like in the first game, the amount of experience required to level up beyond 99 lowers dramatically, so we'll be getting the free health and SP refill through leveling almost every single fight. We just got to get there first. The only other thing they changed, and it's less changed, more I guess they forgot about, is that in the first game, to stop the pain area being so dull, they eventually rotated the entire game's soundtrack instead of just playing the battle theme. This game doesn't do that. You only get the battle theme for almost every single encounter in this, with the exception of the very last one. I mean, actually, I say that it might have played a normal encounter for that, but I haven't actually got there yet in my recording to double check, so I can't remember what I did, if it did or not in my blind playthrough. It's just a normal battle theme throughout all of this, which, as you can imagine, gets dull very quickly. I'm very critical of this game's pain area. I appreciate that they added the odd gimmick and made the fights harder to make it so it's more engaging mentally, but it's far longer, and so it ends up draining you. And the fact that they don't have as creative use the soundtrack, they just play whatever, and these fights get kind of bullshit later on. Like, some of these fights later on, the only way you're surviving it is by having Liliana or Rotti go first and then just applying buffs so they will survive the next attack. Preferably you should try and make it Liliana, but Rotti is at max level without any equipment, is going to be faster, so you might want to lean more into her in that instance. Alternatively, a way you can handle this is actually to bring in the Defend 1 cast. Claire, if you max out, if you give her the right equipment, max her out in the right ways, and just fucking spam Cobalt Bullet after a buff, you can get broken damage. Like, they didn't balance her in this game, so Cobalt Bullet will just rip to shreds most enemies. I was watching the speed run at Limit Break, which I recommend following. Limit Break's the idea of Limit Break is that the game's done quick, but only with RPGs. They did a speed run of Death End 2 on the hard mode, and they got the whole game done in an hour and a half. And they were showing in that, the moment you get Claire, they just don't get rid of her, because Cobalt Bullet's just too broken. It was kind of humorous though in the speedrun how much went wrong, because they almost never saved, and so when a random like mini boss in chapter 2 just got us like a jump on them and murdered the whole party in one go, so they lost like 10 minutes of progress, which doesn't sound like much, but in terms of speedrunning, that's a dead run. And I was just like, oh no, but they carried it on. And then they got unlucky because the dude just forgot to pick up what's it called? The Osis Bomb. The group revive item. There's a second one that they were going to pick up on the run, but they forgot to pick it up. So when it came to the second phase of the final boss on the true run, they didn't have it, so they had to just kind of pray that they could get a good revive skill in and survive. And so that fight ended up taking like 20 minutes when it was supposed to take like 2. But they were jesting afterwards. They said even with all of this, it was still faster than the original runs for the game when it first came out. Like, the runs come such a long way that even that really stunted difficult run worked out for them. Which, it's always nice to hear that sort of thing of how far a speedrun can come, especially when this game's only a few months old, which makes me really curious to see where it could possibly go. I know it's not that popular, so like Death End 1 speedrun, it'll probably end up fading into obscurity, but it feels like there is a lot you can do in this game, and they did show off exactly what I've mentioned before about the codes, where if you know the codes in advance, you can just put them in. And they actually did that to be really clever or something I didn't even realise. In chapter 7, I want to say, the one where you're trying to get signal for Sheena's phone, so you wander back into the second area, is that if you touch the save point on the other end, there's nothing stopping you using a teleport stone. But the thing is, it puts you on the opposite side of that door, the door that eventually would lead to the mountain path. But that door, the reason why it's there is to try and stop you from just warping to the end. But if you know the code in advance, you could skip the entirety of chapter 7 in one fell swoop. You just touch that save point and there you go. And there's something about that I just find really cool. I enjoy learning little things like that. Well, this enemy is the first instance early on of an enemy that can just, if it gets lucky, wipe the floor with you. So you're going to see me kind of have people in glitch form and then just prioritize healing. Like, I try and push for their kill now, but later on you're going to see me just keep people in glitch form. Additionally, I don't think we get every single skill for Liliana through this, but we get the important ones, so I'm not too fussed beyond this point. Doesn't help that this enemy's buff as all hell. Look at how much damage it's sustained and it's still up. Ugh. But just like with the first game's pain area, I'm just going to let the game play itself for a while whilst I talk about other topics, because otherwise I'm going to run out of things to talk about very quickly. And the first thing I want to do actually is talk about a comment that popped up on an earlier video that I want to clarify on, because it was a dude just essentially asking about like how legitimate one of the points I made in this actually is, which is fair enough, because looking back on it, I did kind of rush through it, so if I can clarify on it and hopefully answer some questions, I would love to. And that is to do with not just the new glitch forms, but the redesign of the old glitch forms. Was it a censorship decision or was it deliberate? In the video, and I still stand by this, I said I thought it was deliberate and not something that was decided. And my reason for feeling this is that in the original concept art, for not just the version that came to the West, which if a version of the game was going to be censored, it would be that version, but the original Japanese version of the game had this new artwork as well, and they treated it as redesigning, not censoring. In the Japanese art book, they regularly talk about a decision was made to take an alternate take on the character designs, which I said felt like it was them actually taking in the criticism that a lot of people had with the first game, that they felt like they were missing the golden rule of Compile Heart's superformed characters in all their published games, which is the power balance between making them look very powerful while still making them sexy. And for me personally, I know I'm biased, but I always feel like Neptunia is what mastered it. You look at the Neptunia games, when they go into their goddess forms, they know what they're talking about and they have it down to a T. They look really sexy, while at the same time you can tell they've got power. You can tell they're going to kick your ass. Also, we got a new ring for Rotti, so I equipped that while we're at it. I end up equipping it to Rotti and mixing it around for the rest of the party. Whilst in Death End 1 they didn't have that. Death End 1, Sheena literally had a ribbon around her. Celica just had butterfly wings covering the important bits and nothing else. Lucille, alright? But the point is that they look like they just stripped them down and called it a day. They didn't actually make them look more powerful, and I felt like they really undercooked what they could do. Whilst in the second game, the ribbons are thicker. The butterfly wings have got this black outline that goes down her chest. There's like this glow effect on some of the characters. And of course the new characters, all of them actually have suits. I mean, look at Liliana here, for example, where she's got the little skirt attached to it. If it was Death End 1, you know for a fact she wouldn't have that. It wouldn't be that at all. That skirt wouldn't exist. It would just be like some blue piece and that was it. It does feel like they wanted to make more of a decision to make more of an aesthetic charm to them, and it wasn't a decision of dealing with Western Sony censorship policies. Yeah, I can imagine it did play into the hand of Sony, because then they didn't have to worry about it as much, but it's still something that I firmly feel wasn't a censorship decision because of old artwork and them talking about redesigns a lot in the early days of its Japanese release, before it was even out in Japan. Like I said, where it's less likely to be censored anyway, it would have been more of an in-house decision. I am prepared to acknowledge, though, that after Dragonstar Varnir and Mary Skelter, well, Mary Skelter 2, an alarm bell might have been sent back to the Japanese base that Sony is giving grief to the Western side. What I mean is, and I mentioned it in the Dragonstar playthrough, and you know when I eventually do that madness run I'll probably bring it up again, but they zoomed in a shot of Minessa early on in the game that hid her legs when she was showing how to ride the broom for censorship, and it's like, it's her legs. What are you trying to tell us, Sony? That women can't have legs? Like, it was bollocks. It was stupid. Like the one where it's Lapanet in the shower, I 100% got it. Making it steamier, Sony were never going to let that slide. Even if on a personal level I feel like, what's the point of age ratings if you're just going to censor everything? Like, I've never been fond of the idea of censorship on Sony's side, because I think that's what the age rating should be for. It should be a warning so you're not harming the artwork or the idea of the original, the intent. But what can you do? But Mary Skelter 2, if Dragonstar didn't, Mary Skelter 2 probably did. Because as some of you might know, in Japan, Mary Skelter 2 did in fact have a PS4 release. It came out on the PlayStation 4 and the Nintendo Switch. In the West, it came out only on the Nintendo Switch. It never got its PS4 release. The reasoning being is that a core gameplay mechanic of the Mary Skelter trilogy is that as you're killing enemies, your characters get covered in blood, and you have to wash off the blood to not only clean them up, but the game will give you a stat buff for the next time you go into the tower, so you can give them more of an advantage. So you can make it so they'll get a health boost, or they'll get an SP boost, or they'll go in with extra attack damage. It's something that is quintessential to the game's systems and mechanics, because the Mary Skelter trilogy, well, I can't speak for Final because it's not out yet, but Mary Skelter 1 and 2 aren't easy games. So being able to, after they're covered in blood, get them cleaned off to give them a buff, to give them a better chance, is something that's practically a requirement to really make the most out of it. And the team that worked on the translation knew that, but Sony did not like it and demanded it to be censored, because when you shower them, I don't know how it works on the console release, but on the Vita you have to actually wash them down using your finger as a sponge, and it rubs their clothes off as you do it. And so any kind of nudity and the fact that you're kind of touching the character and they're making questionable noises, I don't know how they let it slide on the Vita back in the first game, with Sony's censorship policies being as strict as they are, but they refused to allow it in any form or fashion in the second game. And because it's core to the game mechanics, it just didn't come out on the PS4, which hurt sales, because suddenly an entire platform it was supposed to release on, it didn't. And so maybe I could be convinced that that affected their decision making for Death End 2. Also, we get a save point halfway through here. It's the same with every floor, you always get a save point. It's the same as the first game. There is another criticism for the pain area, but I want to finish my point before I get to it. Like, maybe I could be justified that at least with the first game, the redesigns maybe were slightly influenced by the Western side, like with what the Western side had gone through with previous projects. But on a personal level, I disagree, because they've never really shown any sign of caring up until this point, and I don't think one game's Western release is going to really change their mind. Call it a hunch. I don't think it's really going to suddenly break the mold and suddenly make them all go, oh yes, this is a problem we need to deal with. I can imagine they just went, oh well, and cracked on. Which also means it'll probably happen again with Mary Skelter Final. Like, I'm willing to bet money on it, which will be a shame because Mary Skelter Final comes with the first two games. Also, we get Solar Rock at this late stage of the experience. And it's like, it'd be a shame if it doesn't, because like I said, Final comes with 1 and 2, and it would be nice to be able to have all three of them together on one platform. And I would like to Let's Play Mary Skelter 1 at some point. Maybe not 2 or Final, because the plot gets so overly convoluted, and to get the true ending of the first game, you need to have the true ending of the second game saved in your system. And things like that, it's like, it would just drift me far from it. I don't mind the rabbit hole I dig by going through Death End, but going on Mary Skelter as well, I think would just push me over the edge. I think I would burn out. So maybe I'd recover the first game, but not the rest. But that's essentially my point in the topic. I personally don't think they censored it. I think it was a deliberate choice. I know in the Steam version of Death End 2, before it came out, they asked people what design would you actually prefer, and just left it up to the player. But that still, to me, doesn't sound like a censorship thing. That was like, look, do you like the old designs that much? Here you go. But that will wrap up my point. The next thing I want to quickly talk about is another criticism of the pain area compared to the first game. In the first game, you had access to the strain area starting halfway through, and that's what you did to access the pain area in that game. Because of that, Nova, one of the strain area residents, acted as your checkpoint marker. Every half of a floor you covered, she would mark down for you to be able to warp to at the cost of a small fee. In the second game, that doesn't exist. You have to do the entirety of the pain area in one go. If you leave, you're back to the very start, no questions asked. The enemies will all respawn the very second you retreat. You are stuck in here until the end. And that is such a huge criticism, because I said the first game had this breathing room where you could go get your resources, put it together, and you didn't have to do so many fights back to back. In this, yes, there is still the technicality of you can save and come away. And if you're struggling, something I would recommend is once you get to your first save point, after every fight, retreat to it. Because the fight you've done will still register. You won't have to do it again because you retreated to a save point. The fights only reset if you leave the entire area. So use that to your advantage. Even if it's between floors. There's a save point at the end just before the boss of the first floor. It's the same for every floor. There's always a save point just before the boss. You can go into floor 2, do a couple fights, and then backtrack to floor 1 and use that save point, and it won't reset fights on either floor. So feel free to use that, especially as you get to floor 5, when every fight can just randomly one-shot kill your party for no good reason. It's far better to be safe than have to keep on doing the same fights over and over again because the game just decided to screw you and just kill you. Something else I will compliment though, although they don't really do anything with it, because it's more sequel baiting in the same vein as all the Lydia stuff was in the game, there is actually a sub-story you can unlock and work your way through here, which we will be doing, where you just basically have small dialogue conversations with a side character that doesn't really go anywhere. And I can't help but feel like it's more sequel baiting, and this character's going to have more involvement to some extent in the next game. And in the Japanese advertising for it, there's actually like a magazine page of them talking about this character, but they essentially only just say he's a mysterious fellow who you can find through your adventures, and they leave it at that. Like, they make it feel like you're going to find him in the main adventure, but no, it's only in the pain area. You can go through the whole game, and technically the entire New Game Plus storyline as well, without ever knowing this dude exists, if the pain area isn't interesting to you. Which is a very fair thing to not want to do because of the nature of it. Especially when you've got enemies making themselves invincible, and their skills of invincibility is something that can be shared, so they've just made the whole party invincible. So at this point I'm like, well, I either use Valley Fresh and get rid of it all, but leave my party open, or I wait this out. And I can't remember which one I did, because I recorded this a while ago. Ooh. No, I do just push for the kill. No, I heal and buffer magic. I wait it out. Which means it'll be there after their next attacking turn, it'll probably be gone. So I just keep everyone's defense up. Fight sight is something that I'd recommend trying to maintain at all costs. Regardless of the difficulty of the fight, the last thing you want is an unlucky critical. So try and maintain it as best you can. I probably should have checked. Oh no, they are. Okay, good. So I probably should have checked it actually did go off instead of just diving into the attack, but it worked out. And get used to these longer screens at the end of a fight where everyone's in glitch form. Almost every fight, starting from like the 3rd floor, I make an intention of the moment the fight starts, get everyone in glitch form and then never let them leave. So when the fight ends, it has to do the rotation of everyone goes back to normal, because they didn't have any glitch form exclusive victory screens in this game. Which I think is a missed opportunity to have a lot more fun with it, but maybe they'll bring it back in the 3rd game. But speaking of that character, my, look over there! Who is that? Sure looks like a person, at least. Who in their right mind would be in a dangerous place like this? What's going on? For now, why don't we ask? Sure. Be careful, okay? What in the world is he doing? He seems to be investigating the ground and walls. Oh. Oh, is a Shadow Matter actual sprite? A Shadow Matter is coming! Watch out! Ooh! What? He beat him with his bare hands? Who is this guy? Hey you. Young ladies, what are you doing in a place like this? We're the ones asking questions. You don't seem to be from around here. Why are you here? How'd you do that? Young ladies shouldn't be so nosy when they're as cute as you. Not that I'm complaining. Huh? My name is Rosso, the archaeologist. I'm searching for lost histories in human civilization. This town is amazing. There's only so much archives can tell us about mankind. I can see a terrible evil sleeps here. So never let your guard down. Watch out for monsters, you free. Keep the passion of Rosso in your heart. Stay in good health. He left. I only understood half of what he said. I didn't understand anything. Rosso, the archaeologist. Who is this guy? And you won't see him again till floor 3. Yeah, there's only 3 scenes, one on this floor, one on floor 3, and one at the very end. Then he's a weird dude, alright? But he literally just comes in, punches a Shadow Matter, and then says, hey, you guys are cute, leaves. Just being weird. Which would have been a good opportunity to remind us that Mai has this natural precaution towards men after her abusive father, but they don't really do anything with that. She's more just like, why is this dude randomly calling me cute? kind of thing. Like, she doesn't really react to it, which I think was I guess it's a side thing and it's more of a sequel tease. They're not really expecting you to take it that seriously, but I still feel like there was a slight missed opportunity there. Additionally, you are going to pick up extra weapons for the first game's cast in here as well. And I would have shown off the cast here, but I had to grind I'd have to grind out until when they joined, which I think was chapter 5, either 5 or 6. I'm trying to think. Chapter 3 is Liliana joining, chapter 4 is Chitsuba and Victoria, chapter 5 is Liliana's mother, so yeah, it would have been chapter 5. I think. I hope. Yeah, because chapter 6 is what I meant with Machina and the code, where you can skip to the end. I was talking about the speedrun earlier. Chapter 7 is trying to investigate the tourist area for another escape, and then trying to find the secrets of what's going on. Chapter 8 is everyone dies. Chapter 9 is just a cutscene, and chapter 10 is final dungeon. Yep, I might have been a week, but I've got it. But all I've got left to cover, after the paint area, I'll be showing off the bad ending. I will... This is a huge maybe, because it depends how much effort I'm prepared to put into it. I might show off the extra scenes, depending on what character you ask Sheena to send the message to. But that isn't in stone yet. I haven't committed to that decision that I'm going to do that yet, because you have to do about 3 chapters worth of content again and again and again and again just to do it all. It's not like in the first game where the different endings is just beat the final boss again. Like, there's a lot more to it, and so like we'll see. But the last thing I will be doing, and I'm both looking forward to it and not, is that there is a extra piece of material that has relevant plot details that came with the collector's edition of this game, which I have. That is known as Death End Request 1.5. It is a prequel novel to this game, but it spoils things to this game, which is why I didn't start by reading it. I will be reading it at the end, and I will be doing a live reading of it, so you understand the context of what that covers. So when we eventually get the Death End 3, you've got 2 full Let's Plays to fall back on for clarity if there are any details you missed. Additionally, if and when Death End 3 actually happens, I might make a part 0 in the same vein that I did Death End 1 and like Neptunia and Final Fantasy, but I'll make it just a recap. Like, well, where I will talk about, to an extent, everything that happened in this game and the last game, and what needs to be remembered going into the third. But I won't worry about that yet, as it makes it fucking invincible again. The 3 musketeers here, one of them's invincible.
Here we go.
But we'll see. But it's something I will be doing. I will be doing the 1.5 read over, and after that it'll just be like wrap up, like showing off artwork pieces and such, because there is a gallery section to this game, and it was something that I kind of glossed over in the first one, but I want to kind of give it more grace in this one, is the gallery page and how detailed it is and how much they've got going for it. It's something I really enjoyed about the first game as well. And it was kind of, it's a staple of like compile published games, but it was really undercooked in Dragonstar. And I know I haven't technically got everything when it comes to Dragonstar, but they didn't have like character models, they didn't have extra little bells and whistles, like dialogue pieces. It was literally just like the CG gallery and music, and that was it. And there wasn't even as many tracks in it. As I've said before, my biggest disappointment with Dragonstar is how undercooked that game was. As much as I absolutely love it, it was budgeted poorly, and it hurt it when it was such a fantastic idea under it. And it's still an amazing game, still one of my favourites this generation. I just can't help but wonder what it could have been like if it got more time, effort and money, because I feel like it would have been something really special. So I'm being rather bold here, because I was like, no, I could probably kill this thing before Liliana's next turn. I don't. As I've mentioned before, and I will bring it up again, you can actually technically manipulate enemies here, and it is worth doing if it helps, because it may spare a teammate. If teammates are on their own, they will almost always go for the one closest to them. If teammates are near each other, they will prioritize them instead for the multi-attack. So you can use that in your advantage to have them prioritize someone bulkier, or when we get Liliana's invincibility skill, make it so they only target Liliana. You're going to see me use that a lot. The whole time I can maintain Liliana's invincibility, I'll have her literally in the middle of a whole group of enemies, so all of them attack her, and then have everyone else just stand on the edge and use attacks that don't cause knockbacks, so then they remain focused on Liliana. It might make a couple of the fights later on slower, but it's a safe strategy. And if I can teach you any strategy to find your way along in this, I'm absolutely going to. But here's another instance where the game will have us do something. But to talk about other things, as I've alluded to, this will likely be the last project I do this year, because I'm expected to be extremely busy with work through December, with the build up towards Christmas, because I work in a supermarket when I'm not doing this. I do this all off my own back, I don't get a penny out of this. Maybe one day I'll change my mind on it. I used to be dead against it, because I just didn't like the idea of why would you get paid for it, but as I've got older I can appreciate what people have done with it and how people have handled it over the years and things like that, to the point where I wouldn't put it completely out of the question. It's just I personally aren't 100% with it released right now. It's very much a we'll see when the time comes. But because I'll be working through most of December, it'd be unrealistic for me to then try and do a Let's Play, especially if it was a bigger game. And there's also like, burnout's the wrong word because it's not that I'm burnt out, but I kind of want to do another Idea Factory game, but all the ones that I know of that I've played I've either covered or I can't cover because it's on the Vita. And so until more comes out, I'm kind of like oh, I've got to do other stuff. But I love doing it, as I've never stopped going on about, especially when I was doing the anniversary video. My favourite thing, and the favourite thing I picked up, was being able to voice the characters. I love doing the voices for the characters. I get a huge kick out of it. Yeah, I'm a little rusty because it's been a week, so I had to kind of reacquaint my throat to the voice I give Rotti, which is why it might sound a little different if you've just gone from the last video to this one. But I'm trying my best here. But it's only these three and Rosso that you need to worry about bumping into in this. So it's why before you go in, it doesn't let you into the paint area until you have the main three at least. It doesn't care if you have the first game's cast or not, it just wants you to have these three. Oh, also for the sake of it, in the same vein as Dragonstar, I will go out of my way to show off the other party members at a point during this. Like, I will squeeze that in as well. I was going to squeeze them into the pain area, but then I was like, I have to grind out another 2 chapters. I'll wait, I won't bother. I'll just show it off later on. And besides, as I stand by it, and I've said all Let's Play, this is very much these three's game. So I don't mind just using these three, because the first game's cast, being the whole digital clone thing, is just there for a gameplay thing. It's really not there for anything plot based, and it doesn't make any sense when you think about it. This boss fight though, I should talk about it, because if you don't know what you're doing, you'll be looking at the damage I'm dealing and being like, how? This thing has 9,999 defense and magic defense. Any normal attack you do to it will do 0 to 1 damage. It will be random, like a 50-50 between every time you hit it for 0 and every time you hit it for 1. To challenge that, lower its defense, buff your stats if you can, and hit it with things like Rovid Ball before you do an attack. If you do all of those steps, you will break the 9,999 defense barrier, because your attacking damage will be higher than it. Which, the moment your attacking damage is higher than the defensive stat, it's like the defensive stat barely exists anymore. Which is why we're seeing 40 odd thousand damage get ripped out. But with the other characters that have slightly weaker stats, you're going to see them not get as high numbers. You're going to see them only get 4,000. But the point is, even in this sense, you're getting more out of it. Also worth mentioning, this fucker can heal. And it will always do it 2/3 of the way down. It's not a full heal, thank God. But if you're doing it the slow way, like you haven't got the tricks or you haven't got the equipment on to get the boosted damage out, that will make you kill. That will make you want to kill someone. I am telling you now. Talking from experience from my first run, it was literally like, I got it to when it healed itself, only doing the 0 to 1 damage. The fight took me something like an hour and a half. And then afterwards, I was like, I'm going to experiment with something. There's got to be some way of breaking more damage. And I managed to get really, like, just lucky falling into my skills that I fell into the strategy that I'm now using. And I got this really big damage spike out of Mai. I was like, oh, we found it. But of all the boss fights, until the 5th floor, I'd say this is the only one that I really had trouble with. And it's just because of its defense. It's not a hard fight, it just takes a lifetime because of its stats. To the point where you'll end up burning through SP just to survive it over time. You're also going to see me do everything in my power to not remove glitch form because of the stat boost that naturally come with that. And I got very lucky there. Whatever the last hit is, what does the damage calculation for how knockback damage will be. So the fact that Rotti got a crit on the very last hit meant that crit carried for every single wall bounce. And as you can see, the thing's dead already. If you played it yourself, you might be screaming that a fight that took you probably around 2 hours, I just did in a few minutes.
Did you see how well I did?
But yes, that'll be where I'll wrap up this video. So next time on Death End Request 2, we're on the floor too. But until then, you guys take care now. Peace.